And our word for today on this Ash Wednesday, this Wednesday, February the 14th, our word for today is secret. Secret, our word for today, and here to talk about it is Deacon Dan Brahier. Good morning, Deacon Dan. Can't wait to hear your thoughts on our word for today on this Ash Wednesday as we get Lent started.
Good morning, Dave and Ron. Happy Lent.
Happy Lent to you, sir.
It has begun. So I do have a trivia question for you.
Okay.
Who was the performer that made Jenny 8675309 popular?
The trombone. It's something in the something, right? It's something.
That's pretty close.
Yeah, there's an and the in there.
Tommy Two-Tone.
Tommy Two-Tone. You got it. 1981. Very good.
And if you break that apart, there's no and, but there's nothing I said was true. All right. Very nicely done, Mr. Finn. He's the music guy.
Trombones have two tones.
Oh, there it is.
There you go.
On and off.
Tommy Two. And he was a one-hit wonder, right?
He was. He never had another song. I don't think anybody could name a second song.
And it makes you wonder if the person who came up with that phrase, one-hit wonder, ever had any other sayings.
He tried other numbers, and none of them really had a ring to it.
All right. And our
kind of like Men Without Hats.
Yeah, exactly.
One song, one and done.
That's all we need from you. Go sit down.
Very good.
So I was reading the Lenten message that was published by Pope Francis, and he said that Lent is a time to slow down and to pause, which I really like that idea of just kind of pausing. And as I was reflecting on the gospel reading for today, I was thinking about when I was a child, we used to do those May baskets. I don't know if you ever had that experience where you take like a Clorox bottle, cut it in half, and decorate it and make a basket out of it.
Yeah.
And I took it down to the neighbor. The elderly couple lived down the. Oddly enough, they're probably my age now, but anyway, they're an elderly couple down the street, and put the basket on their door, rang the doorbell, and run. So that when they come to the door, they are surprised and excited, which they were, but they don't know who it came from. And there was something to be said for the joy of knowing I did something for somebody else, but they didn't know who it was. And Jesus talks about that in the gospel today. He talks about, the three practices of Lent: prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. And by the way, I would argue that we need all three of those. We oftentimes will hear somebody say, well, you don't really have to give anything up. Just do something good for somebody instead. And I would say don't do something good for somebody instead. Do it in addition to giving something up. But we should be focusing on all of those pieces: the prayer, the fasting, and the almsgiving. But Jesus in the gospel today, in Matthew's gospel, the word crypto, which is a Greek word, appears 6 times in the reading. And the word crypto means something that is not to be revealed. And so it's translated in modern terms to the word secret, or a couple of times in the gospel it occurs as the word hidden, but secret and hidden both come from the same Greek word of crypto. The idea is that Jesus wants us to observe those three practices, but not necessarily to reveal them to other people. And so Cardinal Dolan last year said, if you tell people what you're doing for Lent, it doesn't count. So it's kind of like saying, God wants us to do some of these things in secret. And I think there's a number of reasons for that. One is clearly in the gospel today, Jesus is being really vocal about the Jewish leadership. They're standing on the street corners, they're blowing horns, they're, look at me so everybody will notice. And so he talks about the idea of getting closer to God. So Jesus points out in the gospel that God already knows that we're trying to get closer to him. He already knows what we're trying to do. And so if this is building a relationship with God, there's no need for me to go around and tell everybody else how I'm trying to improve that relationship. That's between me and God, And then thirdly, as was the case with my neighbors when I was a kid, there is some joy in sacrificing and giving to others when they don't know it. So Jesus in Luke 14 says, if you're going to hold a banquet, invite the poor and the blind because they can't repay you. With the idea being that when you're doing something good for somebody else, you don't necessarily have to blow the horn and tell them what you're doing or why you're doing it. You're doing it for your relationship with Christ. And then thirdly, I think we have to recognize that all of these Lenten practices are to be done with humility. And sometimes they can turn to a point of pride. Look, I've been fasting for 30 days. Look how tired I am. Look how hungry I am, and how great that makes me, And so the idea is to keep the focus on God and not on us. So this morning I started the day with a Lenten ash service at our parish at St. Thomas More. And one of the things we do at our parish is we put ashes on top of the parishioners' heads rather than on their foreheads.
Oh, wow.
And again, with the idea, it's an ancient practice, and the idea is it keeps it secret. You don't walk around all day saying, look where I was this morning, So Jesus says, don't let the left hand know what the right hand is doing. So I'd like to wish our listeners a holy Lenten season, one that's not filled with drudgery, but that draws us closer to Christ as we approach the Easter in secret with our God.
Oh, my goodness. I love it. Thank you, Deacon Dan.